3 years ago, on a December night in Chicago that was so cold it felt like the wind was trying to peel the skin off my face, my life as I knew it ended. I wasn't in a hospital. I wasn't in a courtroom. I was standing in the foyer of my parents' house, the house where I had learned to walk, the house where I had spent 20 years trying to be good enough. My younger brother, Kevin, stood by the fireplace. He was holding a glass of expensive scotch that I had bought for my father the previous Christmas. He looked at me, not with anger, but with a kind of bored irritation. Like I was a stain on the rug that he couldn't scrub out. He looked at our parents and said the words that would ring in my ears for 1,000 sleepless nights. If Sarah comes to New Year's dinner, I'm not walking through that door. It's her or me. I can't deal with her intensity right now. I froze. I looked at my mother. This was the woman who had nursed me through chickenpox. This was the woman I had taken to chemotherapy appointments when my father was too busy at work. I waited for her to laugh. I waited for her to say, "Kevin, don't be ridiculous, she is your sister." But she didn't laugh. She didn't scold him. She looked at the floor. She smoothed the wrinkles on her dress. And then, she looked at me with eyes that were pleading, not for forgiveness, but for my disappearance. "Sarah," she whispered, "you know how sensitive Kevin is. He has his MBA finals coming up. He needs a positive environment. Maybe it's best if you just give us some space this year." Space. That's a polite word for abandonment. My father, sitting in his armchair, didn't even look up from his newspaper. He just grunted, "Do what your mother says, Sarah. Stop making a scene." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not there. I simply turned around, walked out into the snow, and realized that the cold wind outside was warmer than the house I had just left. Yesterday morning, Destiny decided it was time to collect the debt. That same brother walked into a conference room with glass walls overlooking the city skyline. He was wearing a suit that didn't quite fit, sweating through his shirt, rehearsing lines about synergy and leadership. He was there to beg for a job at the city's most prestigious tech firm. He had no idea that the CEO sitting in the big leather chair, facing away from him, was the sister he had exiled 3 years ago. I'm Sarah. And this is the story of how I died, how I rebuilt myself from the ashes, and how I turned my family's cruelty into an empire. If you think that night was an isolated incident, you don't understand the insidious architecture of a toxic family. Favoritism isn't just about loving one child more, it's about systematically dismantling the other child's self-worth until they believe they deserve to be last. In my family, Kevin was the golden child. He was the sun, and we were just planets orbiting his moods. I was the scapegoat. The designated problem solver. The emotional janitor. Let me paint you a picture. When I was 16, I saved up money from babysitting for 2 years to buy my first car. A beat-up Honda Civic. I was so proud. I drove it home, beaming. My father walked out, kicked the tires, and said, "It's a junker, Sarah. Don't expect me to pay for repairs." 2 years later, Kevin turned 16. My parents threw him a surprise party. In the driveway sat a brand new convertible. Red. Shining like a polished apple. My mother hugged him and said, "You deserve the best, sweetie." When I asked why he got a new car and I got nothing, my dad looked me in the eye and said, "Sarah, you're strong. You can handle the struggle. Kevin needs a little help to find his confidence. You're strong." That was the curse. Being strong meant I didn't need love. Being strong meant I could handle neglect. I became the family bank. When Kevin got into a fraternity and accidentally spent his tuition money on a spring break trip to Cancun, who got the frantic call at 2 a.m.? Me. "Sarah, please," my mom cried. "He made a mistake. If we don't pay the school by Monday, they'll kick him out. We don't have the liquidity right now. Can you cover it? We'll pay you back." I paid it. $5,000. My entire savings account. Did they pay me back? Never. Instead, at Thanksgiving, they toasted to Kevin's resilience for getting through a tough semester. I sat there, eating dry turkey, realizing I had literally paid for the chair I was sitting on, yet I felt like a ghost. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the emotional erasure. I remember getting a promotion at my old job. I was made junior vice president. It was huge. I called home, bursting with news. Mom, Dad, I got promoted. That's nice, dear, my mom said, distracted. Listen, have you spoken to Kevin? His girlfriend broke up with him. He's devastated. He hasn't eaten all day. Can you drive over there and bring him some soup? He likes that Italian place you go to. My victory lasted exactly 10 seconds before being swallowed by his tragedy. I wasn't a person with a life, I was just a support system for the protagonist of their movie, Kevin. The climax of this tragedy began innocently enough. An email. Subject line, need a favor. Kevin was finishing his MBA. He sent me a document titled Ethics Final Draft. The irony, as I would later realize, was sickening. The email read, Lev, I'm swamped with rushing the frat. Can you polish this? Maybe rewrite the section on corporate responsibility? You're good at writing. I opened the document. It wasn't a draft. It was a Frankenstein monster of copy-pasted paragraphs from Wikipedia and random blogs. It was plagiarism. Blatant, lazy, dangerous plagiarism. I called him. Kevin, I can't fix this, I said. This is stolen work. If you turn this in, you'll be expelled. He laughed. A dismissive, arrogant sound. Don't be a nerd, Sarah. Everyone does it. Just change the words around so the software doesn't catch it. Do it for me. Mom said you would. Mom said I would. Of course she did. No, I said. My voice shook, but I held my ground. I built my career on integrity. I won't help you cheat. Do the work yourself. He hung up on me. 2 hours later, my father called. He didn't say hello. Why are you sabotaging your brother? He demanded. His voice was cold steel. I'm not sabotaging him, I tried to explain. He's plagiarizing, Dad. It's unethical. Ethics. My father shouted. You care more about your high horse than your family? He is stressed, Sarah. He is fragile. If he fails this, it's on you. That was the narrative. If Kevin failed, it was Sarah's fault for not saving him. If Kevin succeeded, it was Kevin's brilliance. And then came the ultimatum. December 30th. The phone call that changed everything. We think it's best you don't come. I remember sitting on the floor of my apartment, staring at a crack in the wall. But I bought the tickets. I bought the gifts. Mail them, my mother said. We'll open them with Kevin. We just can't have conflict right now. You understand, don't you? Be the bigger person. I hung up the phone. I sat there for hours as the sun went down and the room filled with shadows. I felt a physical pain in my chest, like my heart was literally breaking. I looked at the pile of gifts in the corner. An expensive watch for my dad. A silk scarf for my mom. A leather briefcase for Kevin. I stood up. I walked over to the gifts. And for the first time in my life, I didn't cry. I got a trash bag. I threw them all in. I walked to the dumpster behind my building and tossed them in. As the lid slammed shut, I made a vow to the cold Chicago sky. I will never let them hurt me again. I will build a table so big, so high, that they will never be able to reach me unless I let them. The next 3 years were the hardest and best years of my life. I quit my job. I cashed out my 401k. I started Apex Innovations. You hear stories about overnight successes. Let me tell you, there is no such thing. There is only hunger. There is only fear. I lived in a studio apartment the size of a shoebox. I ate instant noodles 3 times a day until the thought of sodium made me gag. I didn't buy new clothes for 2 years. While my family was posting photos of vacations in Hawaii, paid for, I assume, by another credit card my dad took out, I was walking through sleet in broken boots to pitch to investors who looked at me like I was a little girl playing dress up. "Where is your boss?" one investor asked me when I walked into a meeting. "I am the boss," I said. He laughed. "Sweetheart, logistics is a man's game. Go find a husband." I walked out of that meeting and cried in the elevator. But I didn't quit. I worked 20 hours a day. I learned to code. I learned to negotiate. I learned that no is just a request for more information. I remember the turning point. It was a Tuesday. I had $12 left in my bank account. Payroll was due in 3 days. I was staring at bankruptcy. I was terrified. I almost called my dad. My hand hovered over the phone. I wanted to beg for a loan. But then I remembered the empty chair at New Year's. I remembered Kevin's smirk. I put the phone down. I called a potential client in Detroit instead. I stayed on the phone with him for 4 hours. I convinced him that my software could save him 20% on shipping. He signed. The deposit hit my account the next morning. $50,000. I screamed. I danced around my tiny apartment alone. From that seed, a forest grew. Year 1, we hit $1 million in revenue. Year 2, $10 million. Year 3, we were acquired by a major conglomerate, but I stayed on as CEO with majority control. I was rich. I was powerful. I was free. But I was also a ghost to my family. They didn't know about Apex. To them, I was just Sarah who works with computers. I kept it that way. My success was my secret garden, and I wasn't letting their poison ivy anywhere near it. And then, last week, my HR director, Jordan, walked into my office. "We have a problem with the candidate shortlist for the senior operations manager role," Jordan said, looking uncomfortable. "What's the problem?" I asked, signing a contract. "Well, one of the candidates, his name is Kevin Miller. He says he's your brother." My pen stopped moving. The world tilted on its axis. "Kevin applied here?" "Yes," Jordan said. "He came through a recruiter. He doesn't know you're the CEO. He thinks the CEO is still the old founder, Mr. Henderson." I laughed. It started as a chuckle and turned into a full-body roar. The audacity. The sheer, unadulterated ignorance. I asked to see his resume. It was a work of fiction. Managed a team of 50. He managed 3 interns. Spearheaded strategic growth. He maintained a spreadsheet. Values, integrity, loyalty, family. I stared at that word. Family. He was using the concept he had destroyed to try and get a job in the house I had built. "Reject him?" Jordan asked. I looked out the window. I saw the snow falling on Chicago. I remembered the cold wind on my face 3 years ago. "No," I said softly. "Bring him in. But don't tell him who I am. I want to conduct the final interview myself." "Sarah," Jordan warned, "this could be messy." "It's already messy, Jordan. I'm just going to clean it up." The morning of the interview, my mother texted me. "Pray for Kevin today. He has a huge interview at a big firm called Apex. If he gets this, he can finally pay off his credit cards. Don't send any negative vibes." Negative vibes. Even when I was silent, I was the villain. I didn't reply. I put on my best suit, a bespoke black blazer that cost more than Kevin's car. I put on my heels. The click-clack sound they made on the marble floor sounded like the ticking of a clock. Time was up. I sat in the conference room with my back to the door, gazing at the city. I heard the door open. I heard Jordan's polite voice. "Please, take a seat. The CEO will be with you in a moment." I heard Kevin sit down. I could hear his nervous breathing. I could smell his cologne, too much of it, trying to mask the scent of desperation. "So," Kevin said, his voice dripping with false confidence, "I've heard great things about Mr. Henderson. Is he a tough boss?" "Mr. Henderson retired last year," Jordan said. "Our new CEO is very hands-on." I slowly spun my chair around. I wish I could freeze that moment in amber and wear it as a necklace. Kevin was smiling, ready to charm Mr. Henderson. But as his eyes landed on me, the smile didn't just fade. It evaporated. His eyes bulged. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked like a fish pulled out of water. He gripped the arms of the chair so hard his knuckles turned white. "Sarah?" he stammered. It was a whisper, a question, a plea all at once. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I looked at him with the terrifying neutrality of a judge. "Hello, Kevin," I said. "Welcome to Apex. I own it." You work here?" he asked, his brain failing to compute. "I don't work here. I am here. This is my company. My building. My table." He stood up halfway, then sat back down. I didn't know. Mom said you were doing freelance data entry." "Mom sees what she wants to see," I replied. "Now, shall we proceed with the interview? Or would you like to leave?" He swallowed hard. He looked at the door. But greed is a powerful thing. He knew the salary. He knew the prestige. "I'd like to proceed," he said, his voice shaking. The interview was a massacre. "Your resume says you value integrity," I said, looking at the paper. "Can you tell me about a time you faced an ethical dilemma and chose the hard right over the easy wrong?" He turned pale. He knew I was talking about the ethics paper. I always try to do what's best for the team," he mumbled. "Is that so?" I asked. "Like when you banned a team member from a holiday dinner to protect your own comfort? Is that best for the team?" He flinched. "Sarah, please. That was family stuff. This is business." "How you do anything is how you do everything, Kevin," I said. "If you treat your family like disposable trash, how will you treat my clients? How will you treat my employees?" He had no answer. He just sat there, sweating, small, defeated. The golden child had finally run out of gold. "I don't think you're a fit for management," I said, closing the folder. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. "So that's it?" he snapped, his anger returning. "You're taking revenge? You're petty, Sarah. Just like Dad said." "I'm not petty," I said calmly. "I'm protecting my company. My peace, if you will." I stood up. "However," I said, "I believe in second chances. I won't hire you as a manager. You're not qualified. But we have an opening in the mailroom. Minimum wage. No benefits for the first 6 months. You report to a 22-year-old kid named Mike." He looked at me with disgust. "The mailroom? I have an MBA." "You have an MBA you cheated to get," I reminded him. "Take the job and learn what actual work feels like. Or walk out that door and go back to mommy. It's your choice." He stormed out. He didn't take the job. Of course he didn't. His ego was too big to fit through the door of the mailroom. 10 minutes later, my phone exploded. My mother called. My father called. My aunt called. I watched the screen light up, buzzing across my mahogany desk. I could imagine the scene on the other end. The tears. The shouting. How could she do this to her own brother? For a moment, the old instinct kicked in. The urge to pick up, to apologize, to fix it, to beg for their love. But then I looked around my office. I looked at the awards on the shelf. I looked at the bustling city below. I realized something profound. I didn't need them. I hadn't needed them for 3 years. I picked up the phone. I didn't answer. I blocked the numbers. One by one. Mom. Blocked. Dad. Blocked. Kevin. Blocked. With every tap of my finger, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. I walked out to the balcony. The sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in purples and golds. I poured myself a glass of champagne. This year, for New Year's Eve, I won't be begging for a seat at a table where I am hated. I will be hosting a dinner for my team, my friends, the people who saw me when I was invisible. There will be no empty chairs at my table. Only full hearts. If you are listening to this, and you are the Sarah of your family, if you are the one always giving and never receiving, if you are the one being told you are too much or too difficult, listen to me. Stop trying to buy the love of people who cannot afford you. Take your pain, take your anger, and build something. Build a life so beautiful, so successful, that their rejection becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. The best revenge isn't making them suffer. It's being so happy that you forget they exist. My name is Sarah. I was banned from dinner. And now, I own the restaurant. Cheers.